On the far edge of Vancouver Island, where the asphalt gives up and the logging roads begin, there was an 18-year-old farmer's daughter with wild red hair and a secret the grown-ups had forgotten. She swore that if you walked deep enough into the woods, took off your boots, and sat in absolute silence, the trees would start to talk. Tonight, I'm going to tell you exactly what they said to her. Her name was Rose, but everyone just called her Wild Rose because she never quite stayed where the fences said the land should end. While her brothers drove tractors and her parents bargained over feed, she spent her evenings pushing past the cow fields, past the clear cuts, into the last scraps of ancient cedar and fir. She believed the forest remembered everything, and that if she listened hard enough, it might remember her too. Most people on the island told stories about storms and shipwrecks, logging camps and long winters, but the old ones, if you caught them on the right night, with the right kind of tea in their hands, they talked about something else. They said the forest was older than any map, and that sometimes it let a person in, not to walk, but to listen. That was the secret Wild Rose kept like a coal in her pocket. Rose waited 8 years before she tried it for herself. On the evening of her 18th birthday, after the chores were done, and the farm fell into that quiet where you can hear the refrigerators hum, she slipped out the back door with no jacket and no phone, just her boots in her hands, and that old story in her chest. She walked until the gravel turned to dirt, and the dirt turned to roots. She knew the rules the old woman had whispered. Go in alone. Go in barefoot. Don't break a twig if you can help it. And when you think it's quiet, wait longer. The forest will test your patience before it opens its mouth. Deeper in, the world rearranged itself. The light turned green and slow. Ferns reached at her knees, and nurse logs rose like sleeping whales from the forest floor. It stopped feeling like a place you hike through, and started feeling like a room you've been invited into, but only if you remember to wipe your feet. She walked until her legs hummed, and the last threads of orange sky vanished behind the branches. When she finally found a clearing small enough to feel like a secret and soft enough to sit in, she set her boots beside a stump, lowered herself to the earth, and let the cold, damp soil press up against the soles of her feet. At first, there was only what she already knew, the faint mutter of a creek somewhere beyond sight, the distant croak of a raven, the soft tap of a branch nudged by the wind. But then she remembered the last rule. Don't listen for words, listen for the spaces between them. Minutes passed. Her feet grew numb from the cold earth. Her back started to ache. A mosquito whined past her ear, and for a moment she almost swatted it, almost broke the spell. But then something shifted. The wind didn't just move the branches, it seemed to choose them. A deep, slow creak rolled through the trunks, and Rose felt it more than heard it, vibrating up through her heels. It didn't sound like a voice, not the way people talked across the dinner table or shouted across the barn. It was more like a hill collapsing in slow motion, like old ships settling deeper into the harbor mud. The trees were clearing their throats, and underneath that long, wooden sigh, there was a rhythm, a pattern, like something old trying to remember how to sing. Rose didn't try to translate it into human words. She just let the sound move through her, the way you let ocean waves hit your legs, without trying to catch each one. But as she sat, still as stone, images began to bloom behind her closed eyes. Rain falling for 100 years, fires lapping at bark and then falling away, roots threading through rock to find veins of water no one had ever seen. Somewhere in that slow, wordless song, she felt the forest noticing her back. It recognized the mud on her heels, the hay stuck to her pant cuffs, the smell of diesel and manure and fresh milk. It read her like bark reads seasons. And what it sent her was not a warning, or a curse, or some grand prophecy. It sent her a question. It asked, in the only way a forest can, will you remember us when they forget? When the roads push farther, when the trees fall one by one, when the fields get bigger and the nights get smaller, will you still sit, barefoot on the earth, and listen? Will you speak for us when our voices are only in the wind? Rose didn't promise the forest she'd save it. She was 18, with calluses on her hands, and not much more than a second-hand truck and a stack of feed bills to her name. But she could promise something smaller, and maybe just as important. She could promise to remember, to sit and listen, and carry its stories back to anyone who'd sit still long enough to hear them. When she finally stood, her legs were stiff and her feet were numb, but the world felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just more alive. As she slipped her boots back on at the edge of the clearing, she realized the secret wasn't that the trees could talk. The secret was that most of us have forgotten how to sit still long enough to hear them. So if you ever find yourself on a quiet patch of earth, and you've got more patience than excuses, try it. Take off your shoes, sit down, listen for a long, long time, and if the trees start talking, remember what they asked Wild Rose. Then, come back here and tell us what you heard.